وطن 100 ساله وسن هاشم these are absent okay محمد رضا عبدالحمود علی جوزف wait, previous session, I think we worked up to the end of chapter 4, I think. Am I right? Okay. Um, did we talk about the symbols? No. Okay. So today we are going to focus on the symbols. I mean the major symbols in the novel. There are lots of symbols, and the way they help the writer to convey his idea or a theme and through the use of symbols such as the beast, the pig's head, and even piggy's specs. Golding demonstrates that humans, when liberated from society's rules and taboos, allow their natural capacity for evil to dominate their existence. So let's go to page Mr. Maliki. Okay. He told me. Is that okay? یادداشت‌های اشتراکی please. Common notes. So first of all, the main idea or the theme of the story is humans when liberated from um, society rules and taboos below their natural capacity or evil to dominate their existence. So this is the theme of the novel. I mean, the central idea. And to, to support this idea, Golding uses some symbols. One of the most important, most obvious um, symbols in Lord of the Flies as the object that gives the novel its name. I mean, the pig's head. Um, Golding's description of the slaughtered animal's head on a spear is very, you know, graphic maybe, and also frightening. Um, the head is depicted as dim-eyed, as we are said in the novel itself, grinning faintly, blood blackening between the teeth, and the obscene thing is covered with a black blob of flies that tickled under his nostrils. So as a result of this detailed image, I mean striking image, we become aware of the great evil and darkness represented by the Lord of the Flies. And Simon begins to converse with the seemingly inanimate devil-like object. The source of wickedness is revealed, even though the conversation may be entirely a hallucination. And Simon learns that the beast, which has long since frightened the other boys on the island, is not an external force. In fact, um, the head of the slain pig tells him, um, I'm part of you. It means the evil is part of you. That's to say, the evil epitomized by the pig's head that is causing the boys' island society to decline is that which is inherently present within them. The other symbol is the beast. It represents the evil naturally present within everyone, which is causing life on the island to deteriorate. As it is Simon who tells children, maybe there is a beast. What I mean is, maybe it is only us. Um, the third symbol is Pippi's specs. Well, the evil within the boys has more effect on their existence as they spend more time on the island, isolated from the rest of the society, and this decline is portrayed by Piggy's specs. And Piggy himself, um, also represents the civilization and the rules from which the boys have been separated. And as Piggy loses his ability to see, so do the other boys lose their vision of that civilization. So here we can refer to two kinds of visions: physical vision, inner vision. Okay. Um, when Piggy's specs are stolen, um, he is left virtually blind. Um, and the other symbol which we can refer is jungle. Um, jungle is used by many authors as an archetype to represent death, decay, and darkness. The darkness which is naturally present within humans, that is capable of ruling their lives. The other symbol is longest card. Um, well, the plane carrying the boys, when the plane which was carrying the boys was, um, you know, um, encountering a problem and most likely crashed, there is a long scar smashed to the jungle. So we have the image of broken trunks with jagged edges, which is sufficient to give the um, you know to give the audience or reader an idea of the destruction caused to the island. So symbolically, there's a long scar made by the plane um, represents the destruction that man is naturally capable of causing and can be related to the harm the boys ultimately cause to one another, including the deaths of three boys before they are rescued. Um, let's see, the sixth one can be masks, which is very important. Yeah, when the plane hit the ground. Yes, Alisafa. Um, well, the degeneration of the boys' way of life is also very evident through the symbolic masks. When conceived by masks of clay paint, the hunters, especially Rolf, seem to have new personalities, as they forget the taboos of society that once, restrained them uh, um, from giving into their natural urges. So, um, when they use masks, they are liberated from shame. They are liberated from self-consciousness, and they they conceal their personality behind the mask of paint. Um, for example, when Jack is using a mask, he feels free to act like a savage person. And next are colors. Um, and they have their own symbolic meaning. For example, the mask that Jack uses is red, which symbolizes violence. So we have here three colors as you know, symbols: white, red, and black. Each has its own meaning. Respectively, we can say that these colors symbolize violence, terror, evil. So, um, red symbolizes violence, white symbolizes terror, and black symbolizes evil. So Golding uses these colors, I mean red, white, and black, to illustrate those characteristics that are inherently present in humans, I mean violence, terror, and evil. Um, next are haunts. The feeling of liberation that results from the wearing the masks um, allows many of the boys to participate in the barbaric, inhumane um, uh, pig hunts. And those hunts can be interpreted as symbolizing the boys' primal urges or even anarchy. in one of the scenes, um, the boys have become so much like savages that they are unable to control themselves, and for a moment they mistake Simon for the beast. And as a result of their uncontrolled urges, the boys soon kill one of their own. The other symbol can be um, again, rock is one of the most memorable symbols, which is used to show violence and darkness. And as an archetype in literature, a rock can symbolize strength and power. And since this rock is red color, it also represents violence. And we can now refer to the PD, to the conch and PD. PD and okay, dear students, when I am writing in the یادداشت‌های اشتراکی, I cannot see your you know comments here. Um, okay, Muhammad Ali Khazir. Okay, let me finish this part. Um, well, Piggy and the Conch had been two of the few representations of civilization and common sense on the island. Also, you know that Conch um, uh, was the symbol of authority and possession, being, I mean, the idea of ownership. When the rock causes both of these to stop living, I mean, to cease to exist, all order on the island is brought to an end. And the boys who express no regrets over the death of Piggy have fully become savages. So Piggy and the conch represent civilization and common sense and wisdom. So here we can sum it up and say that these, you know, symbols help Golding to, you know, illustrate his idea, the dark, I mean, to portray the dark and deteriorating life that arises from mankind's inherent capacity for evil, which is allowed to control humans when they are freed from the rules of society. Well, some students join us late. We are, I think, Muhammad Ali Khazir. Um, Muhammad Ali Khazir, I don't have your name in my list. I think this is the first session you are joining to the class. Um, okay, I'm going to add your name. Muhammad Ali Khazir. رضا معاوش. I'm reading the list. I mean the name of the students who were absent when I wrote the names. Raed Hassan Khazir. If you are in the class, please inform me. Natak Adnan. Not in the class. Okay. Fatima Rustami. Habib Matrud. Fatem Saad Saleh. Hassan Hashim. Absent. And Muhammad Abdul Reza Hamoud. Not in the class. Well, dear students, for the next week, please study James Joyce, The Portrait of the Artist as a Young Man. Portrait of the Artist as a Young Man is our next um, subject to be discussion in the class. Yeah, it is um, maybe like autobiography. Um, Portrait, artist, young man. Okay. Um, Now let's go to chapter 5. Who is going to explain chapter 5, which is based from the word. نمیدونم این دانشگاه علوم تحقیقات چرا اینقدر کلاس طولانیه. هیچ واحدی ما اینجوری نیستیم ما. همه واحدها کلاسای 2 واحدی 1 ساعت و نیمه. 1.5 hour. 1.5 an hour, not 2 hours. Um, Safa Satan, what is this? James. Okay. بذار ببینم کی صحبت کنه. مونا محمد Hassan. Please tell us about chapter 5. What happens in chapter 5?
Hello, Miss. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Yes. Can I speak about chapter 5?
Yes.
Yes, okay. In chapter 5, Ralph walks along the beach, thinking with frustration about the disintegration of the boys' effort to improve their lives on the island in an ordinary civilized way. That will maximize their chance of being rescued. The cruel behavior, love of savagery, and lack of discipline have accelerated to such a degree, especially among the hunters, that Ralph fears of the whole group. He decided to call a meeting to attempt to bring the group.
Now you're disconnected, I think. No. We don't have your voice. Tisir Javad Kazem. Tisir Javad Kazem.
Can you hear me, Miss?
Yes.
Yes. Can I complete?
Of course.
Yes. At the meeting place, Ralph grips the conch shell and praises the boys for their failure to uphold the rules. They have not done not gather drinking water. They neglect the signal fire, and they don't even use the designated toilet area. Here states the importance of the signal fire and attempts to allay the group's growing fear of beasts and monsters. The little omens in particular have been increasingly plagued by nightmare vision. When Piggy's second Ralph rational claimed that there are no monsters on the island, Jack
Um, Mono Muhammad is again disconnected. Teacher Javad Kazan, can you explain? Javad Kazan, please. Okay, we are waiting. Teacher Javad Kazan, your microphone is mute. Please connect it and tell us about chapter 5.
Good afternoon, Doctor.
Oh, good afternoon. Thank you. Please tell us about chapter 5.
Good afternoon, Doctor.
Good afternoon. Thank you. Please tell us about chapter 5. Javad Kazan, can you hear us? Javad Kazan,
Yes,
what,
Doctor.
why don't you speak?
You hear me?
Yes, yes, I do.
Your voice cutting.
But we can hear you. You are not speaking. Javad Kazan,
And this and this the voice fair of the best becomes Doctor, hear me? No voice. Important aspect of their lives. Do you hear me, Doctor?
yes,
Your
I
voice.
do. Yes, I
Yes.
am here.
Yes.
I'm listening to you.
Especially at night, from the moment the first let you claim to have seen a snack monster um, in chapter 2. In this chapter, the fear of the peace. Do you hear me? Director, do you hear me?
I do, ma'am. Every word you say after that, you are asking me, do I hear you or no? I told you I'm hearing you. Muhammad Khalil Ibrahim. Muhammad Khalil Ibrahim.
No voice.
Muhammad Khalil Ibrahim, please. Muhammad Ali Khazir. Muhammad Ali Khazir. رضا محمد مهاوش. You please.
Hello, doctor. Good afternoon.
Hello, Mr. Mahavish.
At the
Please tell us
beginning,
about chapter 5, please.
okay, at the beginning of this chapter, Ralph started thinking carefully about the main points of his speech in the next assembly. The assembly must be empty from mistakes and crush imaginary. This meeting mustn't be fun, but business, with a conclusion of the mind he discovered decay and dirty, and he disliked perpetually flicking that tangled hair out of his eye. Ralph started to run quickly because it was the time of the assembly. The place of the assembly was rough, triangled, but uh, irregular and sketchy. The place of the assembly looked so different because they hadn't had an assembly as late before. Ralph was unsettled. He talking, of himself to himself, saying if you were a chief, you had to think, you had to be wise. Decision must be taken before missing opportunity. In spite of Biki's ridiculous body, but he had brains. He could think, and he could go step by step inside his fat head. The fire was out, and some of the boys were subtly by the thought of Ralph's. Sorry, do you hear me, doctor?
Yeah,
Okay. Of Ralph's anger because they were aware that a ship had passed the island. The place of assembly filled quickly, except Biggie stood outside the triangle. Biggie wanted to listen but would not speak. This is a symbol of uh, disapproval. Ralph uh, told the boy that there's no water in the uh, Concord shell, and we say we the water brought from the river and put it in the Concord shell. Then he asked who built, asking the boys about the three shelters. Uh, Klamos said all of us built the first one, the four of us built the second, me and someone who built the third one. The third shelter made fallen down because it was tortured. Those shelters will, Ralph said, those shelters will protect them from the rain. Ralph told them the rocks, which is beyond the pathing room, could be used as a leverage. After he let out his spare breath, he said the fire is the most important thing in the island. We cannot accuse without fire, except by luck. The fire is more important than hunting. We will not have fire anywhere but on the mountain. Another thing that Ralph talked about was fear. He told them, I sometimes feel frightened, so we have to be careful about important things like fire. After Ralph finished his speech and laid the conch of on the trunk. Jack took it and started saying, "We have to put up fur like the rest of us. There is no peace in the forest." Then Biggie took the conch and said, "Sorry, you don't really mean that we got to be frightened all the time of nothing. Life is scientific." Biggie tells the boys, uh, hear the boy who talked about the peace. There's a boy who talked about the peace. His name was Phil. He
Mr.
was self
Mahal, thank you
Yes,
so much. And
thank you. Thank you.
would you please tell me what does this mean? In this chapter, we are said that Simon became unarticulate in his effort to express mankind essential illness. What does writer mean by this mankind's essential illness?
Mankind, essential humans.
Illness, writer.
Sorry. Sorry, doctor, do you hear me?
Yes, I'm writing down. Mankind's essential illness. To the end
Essential
of the chapter 5, maybe some pages to the end, 2 or 3 or 4, we are said that Simon became inarticulate in his effort to express mankind's essential illness. And this sentence have been, written bold in boldface by writer. What does he mean by this mankind's essential
I
illness?
I think the struggle between Jack and Ralph.
Doesn't it refer to the force of evil within man?
Sorry.
Don't you think that the writer is going to mention to the force of evil within man?
I can't hear you clearly. Sorry.
Um, well, who is volunteer to answer me? Okay, I answered it myself. Okay. Uh, Another thing, Mr. Mahavish, who tells children this sentence? Who tells this sentence to children? Unless we get frightened of people.
Unless we get frightened
Frightened of people. Who tells? Which character says this?
of what? Sorry, doctor. Of what?
Unless we get frightened of people. Who tells this statement?
Unless we get frightened of people. Uh,
You have studied the novel. You told me before that
yes,
you have
yes. I
studied.
read it. I read.
You have,
I read the
you have
chapters.
read the whole novel. Okay. Who tells this
Yes.
sentence? Because this sentence is very important. Unless we get frightened of people.
I think told by Biggie.
Yes, correct, exactly.
Yes.
Yeah. Um, Higgy, with his fear of Jack, has sensed how dangerous and savage people can be. Thank
Yes.
you. Thank you so
Thank
much.
you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Um, In this chapter, we are said that Piggy remains the only fully rational character during assembly and afterward, and he is the only character who completely dismisses the idea of a best on the island. Uh, it is Piggy who realizes that the boy is the only danger that they truly face. And from what we read in this chapter, we conclude that Rolf and Piggy exemplify human behavior, while Jack represents savagery that may even descend into animalistic instinct. And during the assemblies, one of the assemblies they have, Jack fully abandons the rules and the codes of society, and he promotes anarchy among the boys, leading them on a disorganized hunt for an imaginary beast. While Rolf assumes leadership for his calm demeanor and rationality, Jack gains his authority from irrationality and instinctual fear. Um, and he manipulates, the boys into thinking that um, there may be a danger that they should hunt.
Mai giù.
Okay, Arma Maliki, I think, is um, willing to answer questions or take part in the discussion. Okay, you can tell us about chapter 6, um, Mr. Maliki. Okay, let's have Habe Sophie. Habe Sophie, you please tell us about chapter 6. I asked you to explain the novel 2 weeks ago, or I think last week, and you didn't answer me. I hope you answer me today. Sobhi Hossein Yasin, please tell us about chapter 6. Yes, Mohannad, yes, you are right. Okay, Habe Sobhi, are you ready or no? Please write it here, yes or no. Sobhi, okay, no answer. When you are not answering me, it means that you are not ready. Ali Joseph. Ali Joseph. Ali Joseph.
Do you have my voicemail?
Yeah, I do.
May I speak about the chapter 6?
Yeah.
I think during the chapter, two boys, they were Rolf and Simon. They were going back to the shelter, and the air battle, I think, begins. Airplanes come shooting at each other, and I think a parachuter comes down into the island.
Tell us about the importance of this chapter.
About what? Sorry.
The importance of this chapter. In which way it helps the whole uh, novel.
I think it tries to conclude that when fear overwhelms us, none but a few brave people would only come up and investigate the situation. In this state, Ralph goes to see what happened to the man, I think.
Okay,
And others, they try to back away.
okay, can you tell us about the parachute?
As I remember, I think there's a battle in the sky. The airplanes are shooting at each other. The war continues, and suddenly a parachuter, which had his plane blown away, comes into the island and is stuck in the trees, I think. The boys try to actually follow his path and see if he's alive. But none of them would volunteer when Ruff, I think, suggests that Jack will investigate the situation, but they leave his back. So Ruff tries to go alone.
Okay, what is the duty of the twins at the beginning of this chapter?
You mean Sam and Eric, I think?
Yeah, exactly.
Actually, they were supposed to do their duty. They were responsible to look for the signal fire.
Okay, good.
But they were distracted by the sounds and they actually leave what they were responsible of.
Mhm. Um,
We can also call them somehow cowards, since they just run back to camp and try to hide away from the situation that's happening.
mhm. Do they inform Kiki that they have seen a beast?
Sorry, what?
Do they inform Rolf that they have seen a beast? Or no?
Yes, they actually encourage Rolf and Piggy and others to go and search for the remains of the airplane or the parachute.
Do they call for an assembly or no?
Yes,
Yes.
they call for expedition search.
Whose idea is that to call children for an assembly?
Sorry, what? I can't hear you clearly.
Whose idea is that? I mean, to make an assembly.
I think it's Rolf.
Mm-hmm.
He immediately calls
Yeah.
for a meeting, as I remember.
Yeah. Um, who tells this sentence? We want to smoke and you go wasting your time. You roll rocks.
Sorry, man, but I can't hear you clearly. Can you type the sentence?
Whose statement is this? We want a smoke and you go wasting your time. You roll rocks. That is wrong. Okay.
Sorry, ma'am, I can't hear you. We want what?
Um, a smoke. Smoke. Okay. Thank you. Thank you, Maliki. So what we have here is the landing of the dead pilot on the mountain, which is a pivotal event in Lord of the Flies. For it serves as an actual manifestation of the beast which the boys fear. And Jack requires a concrete enemy to assume authority and finds one in the dead pilot. And despite its obvious inability to harm them. And this foreshadows later developments in which um, Jack will focus his um, you know, um, cruel and bitter comments or criticism against um, other possible enemies. Um, Again, we have the important role of Piggy as intellectual one and also Simon as introspective one. Mm. And as the other boys narrow their focus to self-interest with a limited focus on pure survival, I mean killing the best, and satisfying desires through playing as hunters. Um, Rolf, Piggy, and Simon represent three facets, let's say, of distinctly human thought. Rolf, who strives to um, balance priorities successfully, represents human reason and judgment. Piggy, the problem solver, represents um, pure human intellect. And Simon, in contrast, is a spiritual thinker who demonstrates the human ability to think beyond narrow personal interests. Okay, I think that's enough for today. We will continue this next week. When finished, we go to the next work. James Joyce portrait of the artist as a young man. So we finished up to the end of chapter 6. We discussed the theme of the story and also the symbols and why they are important. Thank you so much. Okay, if any student has joined us late, please inform me. Tell me, please. Okay, thank you all. Thank you so much. And see you next week.